Hi, my name is Eckart Preu and I'm the music director of the Stanford Symphony. I'm very proud to be the conductor of this wonderful orchestra with its extraordinary musicians, and I want to invite you to our new 2011-2012 season, The Music of the Masters, featuring some of the greatest masterworks ever written: Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms, Tchaikovsky, and Gershwin. But of course, there's also more. I don't believe that a concert experience is just to walk in, listen, applaud, and then leave. A concert experience should also serve other purposes. First, it simply must be enjoyable. And joy is not only an important part of music making, but also listening. Joyful listening. I think that is very important. And enjoyment also includes being entertained in a good way. Music speaks directly to the heart. It comes from the heart and goes to the heart. That's why you don't really need to know anything about music. Like all great art, music will move you emotionally. And it's food for the soul. So much of what music does cannot be explained. It just happens. And how music touches your soul is one of those things you can't explain. Fact is, it does touch something very deep inside you. And there's nothing wrong when you learn something during a concert as well. I know. I learn something at every single concert. Of course, it would be quite boring to hear just the famous pieces of the repertoire. Remember, we have 200 years worth of music to choose from, and there's a lot of music that has been overlooked, and music that I think deserves a second chance. So let's give it a second chance, a new hearing, and see if there's something worth rediscovering. In each concert, there will also be something unexpected, a surprise. Something that's not printed in the program. Maybe it's a dance, an actor, a surprise piece, who knows? Get ready to be surprised. Our first concert in October has an American theme at its core. Interestingly, it was Czech composer Antonín Dvořák who encouraged American composers to find their distinctive American voice by drawing from their American cultural heritage, what he called their folk songs, spirituals, and Native American music. An example is the Symphony No. 9, the New World Symphony. Doing exactly what he recommended, you will find familiar tunes like the Three Blind Mice, as well as a spiritual hidden in his music. In the rest of that first program of our season, we will explore other connections with American music. First, with Scott Joplin's The Entertainer, that familiar rag written in 1902, just 9 years after Dvořák's premiere, by one of the great African-American composers of the early 20th century. Then, just 16 years later, we witness how American music already then influenced European composers like Igor Stravinsky in Paris, who put a wonderful and funky spin on ragtime music with his piece called Ragtime. Jazz rhythms from Paris by a Russian composer. Of course, when we explore American music, we can't ignore one of the greatest American composers, the one composer who can be credited with fusing jazz and classical music, George Gershwin, with his brilliant and jazzy piano concerto in F from 1925. He put American music on the world stage of classical music. Our second concert features one of the great romantic symphonies of the repertoire, the Symphony No. 1 in C minor by one of my favorite composers, Johannes Brahms. Whenever I perform Brahms, I feel that there's something very special about this music. It's difficult to say what it is, but his music touches something very deep inside of me. His music truly touches my soul. Maybe yours as well. Brahms waited a long time to write his first symphony. Beethoven had raised the bar high with his set of symphonies, and Brahms wanted to make sure that he could live up to that giant, Beethoven. And he did. So well, actually, only to have a conductor friend say that it was like Beethoven's 10th. Not sure that this was what he wanted to hear. It is a symphony of love and inspired by Alphorns in the mountains. He actually uses a tune in the symphony that he heard an Alphorn play. It is a moving and emotional work in which Brahms poured himself. Also on the program is Italian composer Ottorino Respighi. You for sure know Respighi's masterpiece, the gigantic tone poem, The Pines of Rome. He was also very much interested in Italian Baroque music. He used music of that period as the basis for his ancient airs and dances. Baroque music seen through the eyes of a romantic composer. I'm sure you will love the lush string sounds of this music. Beethoven forged new paths in symphonic music in many ways. Nobody had heard such emotional power ever before in a symphonic work. Beethoven often referred to himself as a Tondichter, literally a sound poet, identifying himself as a quintessential romantic composer. In his Sixth Symphony, his Recollections of Country Life, he conveys above all this love of nature. You can hear all kinds of references to nature and rural life, from the rustic drone like a bagpipe to the awakening of joyful feelings. There's a scene by the brook where Beethoven wanders along a brook and finally hears the sound of a nightingale on the flute, a quail and a cuckoo in the clarinet. A masterpiece is the thunderstorm, powerful and scary. The more soothing is the final movement, where the air is fresh after the rain and providing for a happy end. What else is on that program? Osvaldo Golijov is one of the most prominent Argentinian composers. Even though he lives in the United States now, he still feels his South American roots. In his work Last Round, Golijov celebrates the life of the great Argentine tango composer and bandoneon player Astor Piazzolla. Jennifer Higdon was born in Brooklyn. She's one of the foremost women composers of our time. 2 years ago, she won a Grammy for Best Contemporary Classical Composition. We will perform her oboe concerto, but we will do something a little unusual here. And with her permission, we will play this concerto as a saxophone concerto. Stephen Tamme, who also plays in the President's Own Marine Band, will be our soloist. He's fantastic. This is going to be a great show. As a special event this season, the Stamford Symphony will present one of the world's best string quartets. The world-renowned Emerson String Quartet is visiting the Palace Theatre for a one-night-only event. Time magazine called the Emerson String Quartet America's greatest quartet. And they are extraordinary. What happens on stage when these four musicians play together is just beyond explaining. You just have to experience it. This is a special opportunity to hear this world-class ensemble right here in Stamford and help the Stamford Symphony. I know you will enjoy them. Our fourth concert is dedicated to one of our audience favorites, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Tchaikovsky was a big fan of Mozart as well. He loved the style and grace of Mozart, but also the highly emotional and sometimes revolutionary innovations of the Romantics. When he composed his Serenade for Strings, he composed it as a homage to Mozart, emulating what he loved in Mozart. But of course, he couldn't deny his very emotional being entirely, so it's a mix of classical and Mozartian grace with his typical engaging and thrilling emotionality that only Tchaikovsky's music can provide. Mozart is represented by two of his greatest works. First, his Violin Concerto No. 3, composed when he was 19 years old, and also by his famous Symphony No. 40, composed late in his short life. A highly dramatic piece, and yet always a delight to listen to. In our final concert of the season, we'll play not only one, but two symphonies. First, you will hear the Symphony No. 7 by Jean Sibelius, one of those great landscape paintings that only Sibelius could write, lush and heartfelt love. His last symphony, composed at the height of his power. After intermission, you will hear the Last Symphony by Tchaikovsky, his Symphony No. 6, also known as the Pathétique. Tchaikovsky wrote a lot of emotional music, but rarely something as powerful as this. This is going to be music whose power will stay with you well after you've exited the theater. I think we have a season full of great and unforgettable music. We'll make sure that there will be enough fun in those performances, as well as plenty of emotion and food for the soul. And how important is that? Feeding your soul. The wonderful musicians of the Stamford Symphony and I are looking forward to sharing these thrilling musical experiences with you. So please join us for the music of the Masters next season. For subscription and ticket information, call 203-325-1407, extension 10, or visit the Stamford Symphony website at www.stamfordsymphony.org. See you at the Palace Theatre.